Welcome to the Gita in Action podcast. My name's Radha, and I'm here with our family of seekers to read through and study the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, this ancient wisdom yogic text that we are learning is still super relevant to our lives. Even though it was spoken 5,000 years ago, it is still super relevant to our lives. And so we get together every Monday and Thursday and we read through it together and we discuss it. And today we are starting chapter 11. So we're starting a new chapter today. And before we get into it, I want to make one announcement. I started a new guided Gita session once a week on Sundays. We do it over Zoom, and it's all on the same thread as the podcast updates and such. But it's really sweet. It's from 6 to 7 a.m. Eastern time. We chant together, and I kind of just give some prompts, give some intention setting. Yesterday we did a short little meditation before we started chanting, just to really kind of up our game in that sacred time that we spend in the mornings with God, because that's what our meditation is. It's like our date with God, and the more intentional we can be around it, the more that reciprocal, the more that we'll experience that reciprocal relationship. So 6 to 7, the same links will be on the WhatsApp group. It's very sweet. Okay, now let's get into the Gita, chapter 11. Shakti's here. Shakti, do you want to say our prayers for us this morning?
Okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachayane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtataya Tarayane Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakans Vitams Cha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadahara Shri Vasari Guru Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you. Thank you, Shakti.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And let's get right into it. Stella, when you're ready. The first verse of chapter 11, when you're ready. I'm trying to find it and still struggling with my new computer, so please forgive me.
Arjuna uvacha mad anugrahaya paramam guyam adhyatma samkhyan itam yatvayoktam vachastena mohoyam vigato mama. Arjuna said, "By my hearing the instructions you have kindly given me about these most confidential spiritual subjects, my illusion has now been dispelled."
Thank you. So, maybe before we actually get into this verse, I just kind of want to set up chapter 11 for us. So in this chapter, Krishna shows Arjuna something called the universal form. And it sounds, abstract, but here's a simple way to think about it. It's like seeing all people, all planets, all events, even time itself, past, present, future, seeing the entire universe all at once inside Krishna. So it's not just a beautiful vision, it's intense, because Arjuna also sees destruction, death, and how everything is moving under Krishna's control. And Krishna, if we remember, Krishna and Arjuna are on the battlefield together. Krishna is serving as Arjuna's charioteer, meaning he's driving Arjuna's chariot. He's acting as his servant, and he's also his very good friend. So he's all these things, and he's also the personality of Godhead. So now in this chapter, he's revealing what we call the universal form, and this isn't Krishna's original personal form. The universal form is a temporary manifestation that's meant to help reveal that he's the source of everything and that everything exists within him. And if you're hearing this for the first time, it might feel like unfamiliar or hard to picture. Like, what does it actually mean to see everything in one form? And honestly, we don't really have like a direct reference point for something like that in our everyday experience. So, if it's kind of difficult to visualize, which it is, we can also just focus on what it's pointing to. And we already experienced that we're not in control of everything, and that there's a larger order at work. So what this vision does is bring that reality into full focus. We see that everything is connected and that everything ultimately rests in Krishna. And what's important here too to note is that Arjuna isn't seeing this with his ordinary senses, because we know our senses are very limited. Our ability to perceive things around us is very limited by our senses. We're finite beings. We have finite understanding and senses. So Krishna gives Arjuna a special vision. So this isn't something that we can perceive on our own. It's that Krishna expands his ability to see. And this helps resolve the tension, because our senses are limited. We can't fully grasp reality as it is. There's so many things in this world that we don't understand that just function, on autopilot. And it's not really autopilot, it's Krishna. So when Krishna reveals something, he also gives the capacity to understand it. So what we should understand is this moment, it's not about making everything visible in a normal way. It's about lifting Arjuna beyond his usual limitations, just enough to understand something deeper. And that something deeper is that there's a supreme controller behind everything, and that controller is Krishna. So if we hear this chapter and we're kind of sitting with questions, that's completely natural. We don't have to force ourselves to picture it or understand it, or we can just take the essence, and that is that I'm not the center of everything. I'm part of something much bigger, and ultimately under Krishna's guidance. And Arjuna asks to see this form because he wants to more deeply understand what Krishna's been explaining up until now. Krishna gave him, in the last chapter, we learned about all the special manifestations that Krishna said, that is me, of water. I am the ocean, big bodies of water. I am the ocean. He went through like 80 something examples, I think. These are his special manifestations, but this is really taking it to the next level. It's expanding that. Krishna's giving Arjuna this divine vision so that he can see it all of the universe in God's form. It's kind of amazing. And what happens when he sees it, we'll learn in this chapter. When Arjuna sees it, he's completely overwhelmed. There's at first there's quite a bit of awe, but then it becomes very intense, because he realizes that, hey, Krishna's not just my friend, but he's behind everything, including time and destruction. And then I'm kind of giving you the overview of the chapter right now. Then Krishna tells him something powerful. He says, become my instrument, meaning you're not the ultimate controller. Align with me and act in that consciousness. And this is really beautiful, because Krishna doesn't leave us with something distant or abstract. He doesn't say, now go try to see the universal form. Instead, he reveals this all-powerful, all like really intense form, but then he brings it back to something very personal and practical. Which is one of the most important takeaways of this chapter. After showing this massive, all-encompassing form, Krishna says he can only truly be known through bhakti, through devotion. So not just by seeing his power, but by developing a relationship with him. Right? So this chapter, it gives us this huge cosmic vision and then gently brings us back to something very simple. And that is that we don't have to understand everything at once. We can just start by living with a little bit more humility, recognizing that we're not in control of everything. And in that, beginning to connect with Krishna in a personal way. Because ultimately, the highest realization isn't just seeing God everywhere, which we learned to do in the last chapter, but it's loving him and serving him. And so that's the journey that this next chapter is going to take us on. This section of the Gita, it's a progression. We learned in chapter 9 about the sweet relationship with Krishna. And then in chapter 10, we learned about the opulences of Krishna, just how great he is. And now Krishna's expanding that vision, to its fullest. I mean, he is the all-powerful. Right? Almost to it's like, wow, this is a little bit much. This is a little bit scary, right? But then he brings it right back to say, look, I'm all of those things, but ultimately, I'm just interested in a loving personal relationship with you. So it's sweet. He's bringing us back. And this is the journey we're on together. So we're starting with this first text. I probably should have given the run through of chapter 11 before we read that, but just the first text. But just to reorientate us on the first text here, Arjuna says, by hearing my instructions, by my hearing the instructions, you've kindly given me the most confidential spiritual subjects. My illusion is dispelled. And what we should really hear in this verse, what Arjuna's really expressing here, is gratitude. He's recognizing that what Krishna's been explaining isn't something ordinary. It's not just something that we can understand or that he can understand on his own. It's something that Krishna's revealing out of kindness. He's basically saying, you don't have to explain all of this to me, but you did. And because of that, I'm starting to see things more clearly. And this is such an important point that most of us miss in our own daily lives because we're so steeped in this material consciousness that we like to believe that we're the doers and we do everything on our own. And Arjuna is such a good example of such an evolved devotee. Because even when he doesn't have all the answers or he doesn't understand everything, we see these qualities in him, right? This humility, which no matter where we are, if we have a little bit of humility and gratitude, our spiritual life is just like, could just like completely take off. Right? This is like fertile soil for a spiritual life. So this clarity isn't coming from Arjuna figuring everything out on his own. And Arjuna knows that. That's the difference between Arjuna and me, I think. Arjuna knows that. He knows this didn't came from him. It came from hearing Krishna. So there's this principle, when Krishna speaks and when we hear properly, when our heart is humble and full of gratitude, then confusion starts to lift. So Arjuna says, my illusion is gone. So let's think. If we've heard the Gita before, we remember that at the very end, he says something very similar, that my illusion's gone. So it could raise a question like, is his illusion fully gone? Or is something deeper still unfolding? So for us, what we can understand at this point is that Arjuna has accepted Krishna's position. He understands that Krishna is the supreme, the source of everything. That foundational confusion, who is Krishna, is no longer there. So Arjuna's understanding is evolving as we're going. right? But the conversation is continuing. Right? And the reason that the conversation is continuing is not because Arjuna's lost again, but because now he's asking questions in a different mood. He's not just asking questions for himself, but he's asking for the benefit of others. He's thinking, if I'm hearing this, others will hear this too. Let me ask in a way that makes this clear for everyone. This is another beautiful thing we can learn from Arjuna. He's sincere. He's humble. He's full of gratitude. He's not just looking out for himself, but he's looking out for everyone else. He's asking these questions for everyone. So it's such a wonderful example for us. Okay, so this verse has that really nice mood to it. It's really nice mood of gratitude. And in that, this clarity is beginning to settle in. And we also see Arjuna shifting from questioning out of confusion, like we saw at the beginning. We remember the beginning couple chapters of the Gita, Arjuna was so confused about which way to go. But we see as he's going through this journey with Krishna, he's stepping out of that confusion, and he's gaining clarity. And in that clarity, in understanding, he has this desire to help others. This could be all of our paths, to the degree that we're sincere and have a humble heart and a service attitude. Right? This could be all of our paths. This is what the Gita is teaching us. So it's okay to be a little bit confused. And we saw Arjuna was confused, and what did he do? He owned it. He said, "Look, I'm confused. What do I do?" He's asked Krishna, "Please direct me." Yeah, we can do that too. We can do that too. And at the moment we do that, Krishna will lift us up. Our spiritual life will just like blossom. Right? And Krishna's just waiting for us to do that. And so this is Arjuna's journey, but this could be all of our journeys. When we hear from Krishna with sincerity, it has the ability to clear confusion. Not because we did anything or we're so great or because we forced understanding, but because this knowledge is coming from a higher source. So this is the model we should all tap into, this humility, gratitude, openness to hearing. This is like the soil, the ingredients in the soil that we need for clarity to arise, right? For the bhakti creeper to really grow. Okay, should we move on to the second verse? Does anybody have anything they'd like to share here? You guys also inspired by Arjuna? I'm so inspired by Arjuna. All right, let's move on.
I just have one comment. I just kept
Yeah.
on thinking about how at times in my life I think I got this.
Mm,
I know now. And this reminds me that keeping an open mind and continuing to study, to keep on being part of sanghas, allows me to remember, and,
yes.
and go a little bit deeper and perhaps have a little bit more awareness. So thank you.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. To the degree that we think that I got this, I've got it all figured out now. We're like we're blocking ourselves from receiving. That could be dangerous. Yeah. So if we feel ourselves getting into that place, it's okay, but recognize this is not the place that's going to support my growth and connection. And revert, because that's what spiritual life is, right? Observe, reflect, revert, something like that. I had some kind of tagline in Costa Rica that I can't remember at this minute, but it was something like that, right? We constantly have to take assessment and change course. Okay, should we move on to the second verse of chapter 11? Yeah, when you're ready, Stella.
Bhava yaya hi bhutanam strutau vistara somaya tvataha kamala patraksha maham mayam api kavyayam. O lotus-eyed one, I have heard from you in detail about the appearance and disappearance of every living entity, and have realized your inexhaustible glories.
Okay, thank you. So here we see some sweet things. One, we see Arjuna he's continuing his thoughts here, and he's addressing Krishna as lotus-eyed one. And this is a really sweet and intimate way of speaking. We've talked about before some of these ways that he addresses Krishna, or that they address each other, really reveals a lot about the mood and the dynamic between them. So this language is interesting, because right after this, Krishna's going to reveal the universal form, which is overwhelming and powerful and even frightening. In that form, his eyes are described as blazing, almost unbearable to look at. So we're just seeing two sides here. This is what this verse is showing us. The same Krishna who's deeply beautiful and attractive, is also all powerful and all in like awe inspiring. So the Gita here, we're being brought through this progression where we're being brought towards a more intimate understanding of who Krishna is. Not just as a controller of everything, but as a person we can have a relationship with. And in that, Arjuna's way of addressing him here shows that intimacy. And Arjuna says, I've heard from you in detail about the appearance and disappearance of everything. I understand your inexhaustible glories. So what Arjuna is referring to here is, Krishna's already explained all of these things. Everything's sustained by him. Ultimately everything returns back to him. Creation and destruction are happening constantly. It's a cycle. Everything in this material world is temporary. He's really highlighting those points back here in this verse. And at the same time, Krishna remains beyond all that. He's not affected by these changes. His position is constant, and his nature is inexhaustible. His glories don't diminish or run out. So we've learned all this in the chapters and the verses before this. So Arjuna is basically saying, I've heard all this and I accept it. And what he's doing here is setting the stage for what he's about to ask next. Okay, so he's acknowledging there is this temporary changing world, and then there is your eternal unchanging nature. So he's just grounding himself and us in this understanding. Okay, and then he's going to build towards this deeper request, which we're going to get to in the next verse. Let's see. When you're ready, Stella.
Eva me tad yatata tvam at manam parameshvara drastum ichami te rupam esparam purusottama. O greatest of all personalities, O supreme form, though I see you here before me in your actual position, as you have described yourself, I wish to see how you have entered into this cosmic manifestation. I want to see that form of yours.
Thank you. So here Arjuna continues, and he's very clear. He says, everything you've told me, I accept it as you've described it. This is how I understand you. There's no hesitation here. So he's not doubting Krishna or thinking there's something beyond him. He's fully accepting. He's saying you are exactly who you say you are. So it's important to see that, because we should understand what he's asking for isn't coming from a place of doubt. It's coming from a desire to understand more deeply. He's basically saying, I see you here in front of me in your personal form, this intimate form where you're my, best friend. But I also understand that you pervade and sustain everything. Think about having a best friend like this, somebody who you view as your best friend. And then you learn, wow, my best friend is actually also like incredibly great and powerful. My best friend is actually like the Queen of England. It's like you're already great friends and you appreciate that. But then it's like, then you have kind of this like awe for your friend. This is the journey that Arjuna's taking here. It kind of even like deepens the intimacy and the closeness that he has with his friend. It doesn't override the friendship, right? But it deepens that intimacy. And this is the journey Krishna's taking us on here. So Arjuna's saying, I see you're in front of me, but how does it actually work that you're also, everything? And Krishna's explained, I sustain the entire universe with just a fragment of myself. And Arjuna's like, okay, I hear that, but I want to see what that really means. What does that actually mean? And this is relatable. Like most of us understand something more clearly when we can see it, not just hear about it. So Arjuna, he's asking to see that form, the form by which Krishna is present throughout and sustains everything. And this is what we've talked about. This is what's referred to as the universal form. It's essentially a way of seeing how everything is connected back to Krishna, how his presence and power are spread throughout the entire universe. And it's not something that he reveals all the time, but something that he shows in special moments to help make that understanding more tangible. So Arjuna isn't asking out of skepticism. He's asking from a place of relationship and clarity, like wanting to deepen his understanding. So in doing so, again, he's really asking on behalf of all of us. He's bridging this gap between hearing something and actually being able to grasp it more fully. And this is what leads into this revelation of the universal form. So it's really sweet what's going on here too, when we understand also the relationship dynamics and how Krishna revealing the universal form is really deepening their relationship and their intimacy, because that's what it's all about. This is where Krishna's trying to bring us. Okay, last verse of the day. Whenever you're ready, Stella. Text 4.
It's 4. Manyase yadi takchakyam maya drastum iti prabhu yogeshvara tato mitvam darshayatmanam nam avyayam. Turn the page here. If you think that I am able to behold your cosmic form, O my Lord, O Master of all mystic power, then kindly show me that unlimited universal self.
Thank you. So here Arjuna makes his request. But what's really beautiful is how he asks. He says, if you think I am able to see this, then please show me. He doesn't demand it. He doesn't assume that he's entitled to it. He's acknowledging something really important. And that is that Krishna has the power to reveal this. But whether Arjuna can actually see it depends on Krishna. So the question isn't, can you show it? The question is, am I ready to receive it? And this is such a great lesson for all of us. We all have teachers in our lives. And we all also have some material conditioning that sometimes causes us to think, I know best. I'm my own best teacher. Did anybody ever get in that? I'm my own best teacher. And get out of my way. I know what's best for me. I know what's next for me. Like we just feel entitled to take on a service or, become initiated or whatever it is. And this verse, again, we can learn so much from Arjuna if we really study study his interactions and his relationships. And, this is a very advanced devotee, not because he knows so much or because he was born into a great family. No, because he has the qualities that are prerequisites to really make advancement in spiritual life. And that is, he's so humble. He's so humble and he's so grateful. And we see how humble he is in this verse. He's making a bold request. He's asking to see the universal form. This is a bold request, but he's doing it in such a humble way. He's saying, if you think I'm qualified, then please just reveal it. There's no pressure. There's no entitlement. There's just openness here. And this is for all of us to understand the difference between humility and pride. Humility asks and waits. Humility asks and waits. Pride demands and complains. These are easy ways. This is a good guidebook to see which one you're acting in. Okay, when we're in pride, we feel like, I should already have this. I deserve this. And if it doesn't come, we get frustrated. But humility looks different. It says, I would like this, but I trust the timing. I trust that it'll come when I'm ready. This is so relevant in spiritual life. We come in with so much enthusiasm, which is a great thing. We want realization. We want progress. We want to feel something deeper. Right? Anybody relate to this? It's like you come in and you're like, this is me when I first came in, for sure. It was like, I was ready. And this is a healthy desire. This is good. But the key is the mood behind it. Because our qualification isn't something we determine. It's not up to us. This is the whole point of spiritual life. If we think it's up to us, we're missing the point. Okay, it unfolds over time and it's revealed by Krishna. I remember I had an experience with this when I was waiting to get initiated, and it was taking forever. And I remember feeling like I would never have said anything to my guru, but internally I felt frustrated, like a little bit like, what's going on? Why isn't he doing this for me? And I remember having a conversation. I don't remember exactly what the conversation was. I had a conversation with Kasuba, and I don't remember exactly what he said, but I walked away feeling like, wow, who am I to decide when it's time for this? It's like that. If you think you get to decide things like this, it's like that really shows that you're not ready. And this is natural. If this is you, then don't feel bad about it, because it's natural. Sometimes we feel dissatisfied, and the mind starts to play a blame game. We might blame Krishna. He's not helping me enough. We might blame the process. This process isn't working. Or even we might blame ourselves. I'm just way too fallen. But we have to understand, when we see our mind jumping into those narratives, we have to kind of rise above that. We have to know these things aren't actually true. Okay? Krishna's eager for us to come to him. The process of bhakti, it's powerful and it's effective, and no one is too sick to take the medicine. Okay? The real issue under all of this blame is this subtle expectation. We assume that we deserve advancement, and when it doesn't come as quickly as we want, that expectation turns into frustration. But this expectation is actually a form of demand, and this demand comes from pride, whereas bhakti is rooted in humility. Right? The understanding that spiritual advancement is not something that we claim, this is just our material consciousness going on default. Okay, it's not something that we claim, it's something that we receive. So instead of this demanding, humility shifts us into this different space. We can desire growth, we can long for deeper realization, but we have to approach it as something to be received. We can't feel so entitled all the time. And we can, but to the degree that we are, we'll suffer and we'll halt our own progress. Okay? We can't own these things. We have to be willing to wait, and we have to be willing to trust that it will come at the right time by Krishna's will. This is true spiritual practice. Okay. It's not just like dressing up or, marking yourself as spiritual and running around doing everything on your own terms, at your own terms. And if it doesn't work, then being frustrated and seeping into the blame game. No, that is a mark of a prideful person. Right? That's a mark of a prideful person. And in bhakti, there's no room for pride. You can't claim Krishna's heart if yours is full of pride. We have to shift into this humble space, and we have to catch ourselves when we're shifting into a prideful space. And it's okay, it's going to happen to us. It's natural. But let's get expert at nipping it in the bud, catching it and nipping it in the bud. When we start getting demanding instead of grateful, when we start feeling entitled, right? And instead of humble. So there's this beautiful balance. Okay, it's okay to desire growth. We should. It's wonderful. It's okay to want to go deeper, but do not turn those desires into demands. Because devotion isn't about demanding experiences; it's about serving. And naturally, when there's love, we want more connection, more understanding, more closeness. But a devotee doesn't approach that with entitlement. They approach it with humility. And we experience this in our normal relationships. You can't, if somebody you're wanting somebody to share something with you and they're just not feeling comfortable, we can't like force it out of them. We can't just demand like, hey, I'm close to you, I deserve to hear this. And that's not going to help the situation. We have to approach with a humble and a grateful heart, and a mood of service. So devotee may desire, but they don't demand. And that humility is what keeps the relationship open and soft and real. And these are some lessons that we can learn from these texts, these things we can learn from Arjuna as we're witness to his experience. This is what the Gita is trying to teach us through this exchange and these experiences, this journey that Arjuna is going on. It's our journey. It's our journey too, if we have the eyes to see it like that. What do you guys think? I see lots of thoughtful faces. Can you all relate to having experiences of acting more out of pride and demand than a humble heart? We know we're in a space of pride when we get frustrated when we don't get something that we wanted. That's indicative that we felt like we deserved it. And that's what Krishna's trying to get us away from. We don't get to decide that. It was something like that in my conversation with Kastuba. It was like the realization that, like, look, this isn't up to me. I'm trying to take God's position by deciding, what I deserve, which again just means that I'm not qualified for it. I'm not ready for it if I'm in that mood.
I have
Hi,
an
Krishna.
example.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead. No, you go first.
okay, well, I think, also when we have emotions like, why is this still happening to me? And other things are happening quicker for other people who are less qualified. And I'm thinking more about the job I just finished yesterday, and but in the last year, it's really revealed like the timing. We can put that trust in Krishna, that there's more lessons in that space, that we're in the material world. And yeah, and it just like, it's all, it's always easier looking back, but I feel like that trust has really grown, that really Krishna is time and has our schedule and divine plan like perfect. and it doesn't feel like it some of the time when you're kind of waiting, but when you get through it, you really can see that a lot more, and be grateful for challenges that provided more lessons, and more like experiential, um playing with what we need some time to actually grasp and learn. So that came to my mind a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's really interesting too about this point is that our bodies and the universe supports this point. And you hear this all the time, like people that are searching for their partners, searching for their partners. And as soon as they are like, give it up, all of a sudden, like their partner comes into their lives. Right? Or the same thing with like trying to have a child. People are gripping so tightly. And then as soon as, for whatever reason, it's there, you hear stories all the time, like somebody has a child, like tries IVF, it doesn't work, and then they just give up, and then all of a sudden they naturally get pregnant. It's just like the universe and our bodies try to teach us this principle that we can't grip so tight to this illusion of control. And to the degree that we do, we'll suffer and we'll halt our own progress. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So if we don't want to learn it from Arjuna, we'll learn it from the universe, from our experiences, one way or the other, because it's the design. By design, we're meant to learn this. What do you think, Shraddhanjali? I'd love to hear your example too.
Yeah, I had an example once of we were in LA at the temple. I had all the kids, I think, and it was time for prasadam, and they were serving it outside, but they like started I was hanging out with all like the moms and the kids, and because you can't, sometimes you have to go out of the temple because with the kids, when you have little kids and they're screaming or whatever. And there were a bunch of moms and kids, and they started serving prasadam, but they did it in such a way that they served all these guys were sitting and being served. And I suddenly got into this totally prideful thing, this demanding thing, this entitlement thing. I was like so angry. Like, why aren't they feeding the mothers and children first? We've been out here, the kids are, antsy, they're hungry, we're all really hungry. A lot of us were breastfeeding, we were starving. And it just looked like the men were being served first. I got so angry and like entitled, and I started complaining. And it was just like everybody started looking at me like I was from outer space. And then once I got the meal, it didn't even taste good to me. Like I had totally ruined the whole experience by my like, you know, my idea that I was
Yeah.
entitled because I was A, B, C, D, whatever. Um, and I remember it's really stuck in my mind. I can imagine that day and moment really clearly because I think I learned in that moment it was like that wasn't the right way to go about this.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. It's the mark of a true spiritualist. It's not that you're perfect all the time, but it's
Right.
your ability to step outside of yourself and say, "Oh, wow,
Oh,
maybe that I didn't handle that the greatest." And
yeah.
what can I take away from that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago, and I still remember that.
That's a great story. I mean, as you were talking, I was like, they should feed women and children first.
I still think they should have fed the women first, but I shouldn't have
Yeah.
been entitled and complaining.
Yeah, sure,
I
sure.
could have later gone to talk to somebody, but no, I was
Right.
loudly proclaiming that this was unfair.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, you could have handled that in a way that is more in the mood of service and less in the
Yes.
mood of ego and pride. Yeah.
And could I have volunteered, earlier to say, let's set up a second table for the kids early, like I could have.
Right.
It didn't.
Right. Right. It's all in this that shift of consciousness. Yeah, shifting to this mood of I am the servant, not I am the controller. Yeah. You could have the same thought. You could still think the right thing to do is feed women and children first, but the way you go about accomplishing that is much different depending on the mood that you're in. Yeah. Nice. Thank you. Beautiful.
I was also thinking, thank you for those examples that I think that one can look at spiritual development like our accomplishment within the material world. Once I get this, then I will have arrived. And sometimes it's like, well, I got this, and now what? And I've seen people who, for example, have been initiated and then they're lost because they had worked so hard at trying to get to the place where they'd studied so much, they'd taken all the courses, they'd finally, and then they're like, now what? And it can be such a letdown if indeed we think that attaining that is the goal, where the goal is really just deep, deep connection and love and service to Krishna and to Krishna's world, to everybody around us.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's so easy and common to bring your material consciousness into spiritual circles. Yeah. Agreed. And to the degree that we do, we will suffer. Krishna will teach us. Yeah, there's no place for that. There's no room for that. Thank you. Really nice, Nancy. Anybody else want to share? Kalachandi.
Well, yeah, and three words that really are resonating: understanding, humility, and intimacy that have all come up. And ever since our last class, I've really had that understanding how Krishna will give us understanding on my mind. And it's such a liberating concept. I mean, we spend, so many of us, like we spend most of our lives trying to understand whatever our field is, and we get really good at understanding, and we become, prideful about understanding. I was thinking how whenever we use that word, we almost always use a possessive pronoun, or it's like my understanding, your understanding, I understand. And here Krishna is telling us, no, I will give you understanding. And I just found that so liberating. Like I spent my whole life feeling like I have to understand. And I'm sorry, I can't remember Shakti's friend's name. She was saying, like, sometimes it's hard to understand. And to me, Krishna was telling me, like, I don't have to always understand. I don't have to be we're not the doer. I don't have to be the understander either. And I just find that such a liberating concept. And humility, he gives us humility. I mean, just keep living. Life is a humbling experience. And if one doesn't, find it so, just stick around a little while, for everyone. And intimacy too. That's been so much part of my life the last few weeks. It's been a very intimate experience. And I've been alone or alone with our spiritual master all the time almost. And he and I have spent hours and hours every day together. And we're either sitting like inches away at a desk or chanting together or walking together. And we're always alone. And it's very intimate, and also these verses very revealing and amazing to be with someone in such intimate situations. So anyway, that's all really impacted me this week. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Really nice. Thank you. I love what you said about it's liberating. It's liberating because I've been a doer my whole life and probably lifetimes, just like everything rests on me. I have to accomplish this. I have to do that. Spiritual life, it's we just have to clean up our consciousness, which is a tall order.
Hmm.
But that's where our focus should be, and Krishna will see that, and he'll give us whatever we need to move forward. And that is really liberating, because in cleaning up our consciousness, we just become naturally happier and lighter and more loving. It's not like in material life, the more that you do, the more that you accomplish, the more you become stressed and anxious and scared. It's like, no, spiritual life, it liberates you. The process liberates you. Thank you. Really nice.
Also, just in a way, intimacy is his promise to us. I mean, if we really continue on this process, what we gain is Radha Krishna's intimacy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's the goal. It's easy to forget that sometimes. You get caught up in, even services, to forget that the goal is actually just this close relationship with God. That's what we're going for. We're not going for accomplishing all of this, and even in the name of service. Or ultimately, our goal is that close relationship with God. Thanks for that reminder. Any other final shares before we end for the day? Is Aaron still on? Aaron, we haven't heard from you for a while. We'd love to hear from you if you want to share, but no pressure. Okay, my friends. Well, if that is all, we can end for the day.
So sorry.
Oh, yes.
I'm just getting back from an appointment.
Oh, wow.
No, I just wanted to appreciate everyone. Shraddhanjali, you just share so vulnerably, like all these major lessons, and it's so helpful to hear. So thank you so much. And I just needed to hear like so many of these things today. So I appreciate you all. And thank you so much, Radha.
Thank you. Look at that, a grateful heart right there. Aaron is demonstrating for us. That's what we need. Grateful, humble heart. Let's make that our intention for the week. How can we be more grateful? How can we be more humble and less prideful? And see what happens. Yes. Thank you. Thank you all. I will see you on Thursday. Have a great week.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hi, Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.